this is the brief structure that we're going to be running with. I've prepared a few questions to ask Natif about his background, his experience, as well as his journey navigating the exit landscape in Uganda. But then also we're going to be doing that. Then after that we shall do a quick Q&A from the audience, because I believe many of you came with questions that you'd like to ask. Am I right? Okay. So without further ado, I think let's a round of applause for Mr. Natif as he prepares himself for this round of firing. So Mr. Natif, we're very happy to have you here today. And Tony, all right, because you're a big person now, we see you have secured millions. That's why we say Mr. Yeah. So yes, Tony, it's a pleasure having you here. We're glad to firstly meet you, because I do believe a few of our audience here do not know who you are. All they know is there's a founder who is here who exited and won millions. So I think today you're here to tell us who you are. Maybe you can give us a brief of your background as well as how you started in the startup journey.
Hi guys, my name is Anthony Natif. I am an activist, an outdoor enthusiast. I used to be a cancer pharmacist, public health practitioner, trained a bit from Makerere, University of Washington. But oftentimes when people ask me where I went to school, I say I went to Multimillion-dollar College, the best school in this country. Anyway, I was invited here today to talk about exiting a business and what that means. But really, most importantly for me, I would rather we talk about what it means to build a business that survives you. Why do businesses fail in this country? What does it take to ensure that you're not part of the statistics of business failure? As you know, by the 5th birthday, at least more than 95% of your businesses will have failed. So people who set out to build businesses are going to fail more than they will succeed. So I'm hoping that by the end of the conversation today, you will learn from my failures, my successes, and I'll be able to convert you into lifelong clients of Guardian Health. Yeah, because you will associate with the pain that the company has gone through and the triumphs it has gone through and the values that underpin its existence. And I'm hoping that after that you'll be cheering for the people who are actively building it to be bigger and solve a societal problem. So the rest of the stuff, the intros and whatever, we've already discussed them and I don't need to belabor them. We can get into the actual gist of the conversation.
Okay, so as you may have already noticed, Mr. Natif does not, okay, sorry, I've been told 20. They are also looking for money, so you will see. Anyway, so we've been told that one of the things that I was told before coming here and actually interviewing Tony here is that he's a very, he says things as they are. So as we continue during the chats, you will get more of a sense of that. So there are a few truths that he's going to share with us that he has already shared with me, and I believe some of us are going to be shaken today, but in a positive way. So maybe to just start off from your journey, where did you start with Guardian Health? How did that come about? Did you just wake up one morning and say, Guardian Health to begin? And you began? Or was there a journey before you even began Guardian Health?
So funny thing is, I didn't set out to be a business person. So I grew up in Seta, in a family of more than 28 siblings. I'm glad a lot of you guys are seated. You would have gotten shocked and fallen down. But it was a common thing back in the day. We were raised in a loving family, but our grandmother died at 100, never used a walking stick in her life. Bless her. Our dad was a brilliant teacher. rose to level of education officer back then when districts were like maybe 14, not these days where you have a district every month. So those were very powerful people. He believed in education. Up to today he does, bless him. I believe that the best gift you can give your child is education. So growing up, I really wanted to be a professor so I could continue this whole journey of teaching people. I went to Seta Church of Uganda, primary school, started working from the age of, well, as far back as I remember, I bought the shirt on my back and the shoes on my feet. So I've had to work from, I think the age of 6 in Seta back then. I'm not very young, don't be fooled by the shorts and the youthful look. In Seta back then, I'm sure there's people in the audience who come from Seta. They'll be shocked to hear this. We didn't have running water and we lived close to a well. So then that meant that, you know, you had these guys putting like 10, 15 jerrycans on a bicycle, manigachifuba, and then you push it for 3 kilometers to the town, to the training center, to sell a jerrycan for maybe 100 shillings, 200 shillings. I was a commission agent. I was the one who was pushing the guy uphill. So I've always been the 10% man. I'm glad I didn't end up in civil service. I probably would have. But anyway, I digress. So that was my first job. Probably explains the huge calf muscle. Then later on, I graduated to, this is going to sound bad, but because of the company I used to keep, by the age of 9, 10, I was selling a bit of weed in the market, and I knew how to, you know, kind of source the product, buy it cheap. My favorite banknote was the 50 shilling banknote because, you know, you roll your blunt in there and it's the perfect size. So then I quickly graduated from that when I went to Namilyango College. I didn't want to be chucked from school, mainly because I didn't want to piss off my grandmother. I didn't want to see her hurt. She was that kind of person who would punish you with love. So I quit that job, took up a bit of money lending, while occasionally running my father's bar. I never needed permission to leave the college. Somehow, every Saturday I would get out and go run my father's bar. In Seta, he had a bar and lodge and restaurant. It still lives to today. That paid a lot of my siblings' fees and kept the family going because he quit his government job. He said, "Oh, I just can't work in a corrupt environment." So he retired. He took early retirement and just started reading books and newspapers every day. He still does to today. And taking lots of beer, Bell beer. So anyway, so I would run his bar, get paid Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In his head, he thought, you know, I was extremely honest because whenever I worked, he would get a lot more money. But it's because I was working over the weekend and he was running a bar. And so that kind of taught me that maybe we need to pay attention to the businesses that we run. And so anyway, I became a money lender, sold money to rich boys in Namilyango. By the time I left, and I was fortunate, Namilyango, a lot of people who know me know I speak very highly of that school. I went to Namilyango because it was the only school that would offer me a scholarship. And so because my dad didn't have enough money to pay, he only had money for one term, got me a bar of soap, I think it was called Lifebuoy, a tablet of soap, and Deli Dent toothpaste that, you know, back then every toothpaste, whatever the name was called Colgate. It really was Deli Dent. So we went to school and the thing was you have to be the best in school and then get fees the next term. So really the school paid for my education. And no pressure, you just had to make sure you're the best in a school that takes some of the brightest students in the country. And there are times I wasn't really the best, there were some times, and still the school will say, just continue, I'm sure you'll be the best next time. And somehow, you know, I made it to school. I'm forever grateful. So then, leaving school, I had a bit of money, more than maybe 13, 14 million shillings. We're talking 2001, 2002, which we invested. My grandmother invested in land in Mukono near Bishop Tucker Theological College. As fortune would have it, when she bought the land, a few months later, that university changed its name to Uganda Christian University, and later rebranded, moved its gate too close to my land, and suddenly land that you bought like for 10, 13 million is maybe worth 100 million. And really, that's the money that eventually started Guardian Health. But it's a very convoluted journey. I got to university, I was one of the best students in the country, studied pharmacy. I only put one choice, just like when I was leaving P7 to high school, I put only one choice, Nambiango College. So, university, I chose only pharmacy, I think, as far as I remember. Not because I knew I really wanted to be a pharmacist. It's because at the time there was only one pharmacy school that took like 8 students on government sponsorship, and the class had like 15 people. So you knew that when you finished school, you would immediately get a job. The irony here is, when I finished school, I took up a voluntary position at the Cancer Institute. But anyway, that's because I had made it a bit in the business world. So quickly, as I finished that section of the conversation, second year pharmacy school, I'm in University Hall. Who went to University Hall here? Any fellow got? No? Oh, come on. How pharmacy worked, taught me, you make a lot of money if you import products. At the time, there were these whole UK products. He was like the pioneer of bringing them in. But he had to balance expansion of his chain and also expansion of the range of products he had. So he ran out of money. He wouldn't have money all the time. So he said one time, in passing, if I could get someone with money and I buy like another 1 or 2 pharmacies in Tinda, I'm like, Ogamiechi, I go to my granny, let's flip the land. We sell the land, I tell Grace, I can find the money. Like, okay, let's advertise. So we advertise in Crocs Classified. We're looking for a person selling pharmacies in the areas of Mutinda, wherever, blah, 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 blah. Some chick called Muchala Kalunji. Shadi pharmacy there near the mosque. There's now a vacant place that has trucks and whatever. So that pharmacy in Tinda, at the start of the Chiwatule Road, under that huge tree. So that's the first pharmacy I ever owned. So we put in Crocs Classified. Lady calls us, 35 million shillings, I pay, and he runs it under Vine. Paid me religiously. Then we get another one in Kabalagala, opposite the Posh. Again, this is some problem that business owners face. You get your relatives in there. Paul will forgive me for saying this. You've moved out of the country. You get your relatives in your business. They don't understand it. They run it down, keep playing you. You sell an asset that is actually fantastic. This is what taught me the importance of paying attention to your numbers. I'll tell you the story in a minute, and then because it tells you when I started my journey. We go into this pharmacy. It was called Pharmacare or something, I don't remember. Opposite the Posh, next to NGO Forum in Kabalagala. This guy is in Canada. He has got his wife to run it. The wife gets the brother, who is an auditor in one of the top 5 audit firms. And they're giving this guy reports that they're not making money. But when he was around, they were making a lot of money. Genuinely, these guys probably reported correctly because they were not monitoring the business very well. So we come in there, and it's like, I want 200 million shillings. I'm like, okay. This is when I learned how to buy pharmacies. I'm like, 200 million shillings, what's your goodwill? You're like 60 million shillings. I'm like, okay. Let's write that down. Let's have an agreement. Here is the 60. Let's do the stock take. And it was less than 40 million. So you're suddenly paying something that's 240, you're paying 100 million. So you pay. He thinks it's a loss-making entity. Grace does his magic, puts in medicine, puts in fantastic stuff, and it goes like this. The man starts paying me like 10, 15, 20 million shillings. I am just finishing pharmacy school. I get excited and get into buying cars every 3 months. The time it took to bring a new car from Japan is the time I own the car, that particular car. So I live the party life and all that stuff. But anyway, that tells you my foray into pharmacy business. Ideally, I would have much rather been a professor because I still think I could probably go back and finish a PhD and become a professor. But eventually got into the Cancer Institute, set up their pharmacy, used my business skills, set up their private patient service, hired, I was able to do, there's something called robbing Peter to pay Paul. I got in there, they had like one doctor. You would wait Monday to Friday to see a doctor. Imagine making a line from Monday to Friday to see a doctor. They had 400 new patients every month. They had medicine, the budget was 15 million shillings. It wasn't enough to buy medicine for 1 week, let alone 1 year. So we had to figure out ways of building this thing up to what it is now. And long story short, we were able to start a private patients facility with a donation from Kampala Club, $40,000-$50,000. That's when I learned to do fundraising. And then that private patients facility then was able to hire all the nurses, all the doctors. And as they say, the rest is history. But it's from my work volunteering at the Cancer Institute that I got to do grad school, went to the University of Washington, and went to Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center, and all these places. So I went there both with an academic mind, but also with a business mind. So now you're finally seeing how CVS works. You're seeing the range of products. Then in my time in the UK, I used to have a favorite paper called Guardian newspaper. You know the Guardian, it's still one of the best newspapers around. So it had a section in there called Guardian Health. And so I'm like, this sounds like a very nice name for an insurance company. And I'd seen that insurance companies in the United States made a lot of money. So I'm like, okay, I can go back to Uganda, open Guardian Health, and build a chain of pharmacies, basically build a vertically integrated system. You own the pharmacies, you own the hospitals, and you own the insurance company. So for me, that was the point. That's why I called the company Guardian Health. I wanted it to be an insurance company, ultimately. But also because that name communicated protection, it communicated care, it was relatable. And it's important that you choose your company name wisely. Don't just put you and your girlfriend's initials and think, it has to communicate something. And so it's a relatable name. So we built, started it with $50,000 that I got from Grace coming to the US and buying me out of my interests in value. I did not know valuation. He just offered something close to 100K. We were on the Hollywood Boulevard in an Indian restaurant. I still have that picture on Facebook. And we're writing on some sort of napkin. He's like, let's do this. I'm buying you out. After all, for you want to be a professor, you're going to study. And I'm like, fine. Then I come back to Uganda, visit the guys in that Kabalagala pharmacy, and just to say bye. As I walk down to the taxi near the Shell, where those taxis park to go to town, I see a space available for sale, and I'm like, you know what? I know that Guardian, Vine, Kabalagala makes a lot of money, and it's on the right side of the road, which is difficult for people to park. This one is on the left. So I go and tell Grace, you know what? There's this place, can I take it up for pharmacy? He's like, but I thought you were going to study. I'm like, yeah, but there's an opportunity here. So I tell a friend, he's like, you can take it up if you want. So I tell I had already spoken to the landlord, Mr. Kato. I'm like, I want this space. He had a humongous space like this, and he was negotiating with Stanbic Bank to take it up. But the problem was, Stanbic Bank didn't want to pay him extra. They had their busiest ATM in Kampala on Miega Road, which is not surprising. That was the richest road in Uganda at the time. And Kabalagala was still the place where the devil put his feet. So, they refused to pay him an additional 600K. He wanted 4.6. They were paying him every 6 months. They hadn't committed with money. I am there with my torn jeans. And I have a tattoo here that was showing. And he had no reason to take me seriously. So I'm like, not over Muvine. I name dropped. Then he gave me attention. He's like, you want this place? I'm like, yeah. But I'm getting it on my own. Genuinely, I was in Uganda on holiday from grad school. I was going back, in 2-3 weeks. So, he's like, but you know the bank is taking this. I'm like, the bank in Akujanja. When you get sick, will the bank ever treat you? Do you know the owner of the bank? He still jokes about this conversation. He still comes to my house once or twice a month and we drink Nile beer. He still jokes about this. He's like, no. I'm like, okay. How much are they paying you? 4 million. I want 4.6. How long? 6 months. I'll pay you a year. He's like, I think that was a Monday. Like, Puna, this is my bank account, put my money. I got on a border, went to the bank that very day, put the money, then went and told Grace, I want to put a pharmacy there. The place was so huge, I didn't need that place. The only space I needed was this space here. Between this, there, and the wall. So, again, if you don't buy a ticket, you never win the lottery. At that time, betting was a big deal. So at the betting time, these guys are looking for space. They go to him, he's like, that space has been taken by a young man, he's there. I tell them, I want 5 million per month, I want 2 years. We're like, okay. So they pay, and I hand him all the money. What did he do? He reduced my rent significantly, gave me office space upstairs, and we built a relationship that up to today is one of the most solid relationships I have. But I had not yet started a company. So I went, registered this company in November, got a friend who worked in an HIV treatment program called MJAP, pharmacist. I'm like, come, I give you 50 shares, my daughter takes 40, I remain with 10. He's like, fine, we start the company together. I chase licenses. In pharmacy business, location is the name of the game. Once you get the location and the license, you're pretty much set if you don't screw up. Sorry, I swear like a sailor, I'm going to try. Anyway, this guy, I get the licenses, I get the suppliers, I set up the place, I go back to Seattle, 2 months in, 3 months in, he's not starting. He's like, man, for me, I'd rather do my job. I'm fine. I had to come back, get my shares, start. In March 2013, March 17, our first sales was 72,900 or 79,200. The first bank I used to bank with, I was religiously, maybe obsessive about banking every money we got. 79,200 goes there. They see it increasing to billions. I go to them, I'm like, I have a contract with Bank of Uganda. I am bringing a drug that we're going to sell to them close to $50,000. This is the supplier. I've been paying him through your account, and he delivers medicine, and Bank of Uganda is your regulator. They pay like this. You supply, 1 week, you have your money. They're like, yeah, we see all this. I have a huge deal, 50K. I'm buying it at like 22K. Don't tell URA. And the bank says, no, we want a completed house. I'm like, guys, I have maybe 6 acres by the lake somewhere in Entebbe. No, we want a completed house. I ditched them and went to another bank. This bank I thought was my guy. I have overexpanded. I am out of money. I'm struggling to pay rent. I'm struggling to pay suppliers. I have gone through the whole loan process. Guys have given me, your loan officer saying on a Friday, you come in on Monday and sign your documents and then we perfect the mortgage. I swear to God, that's when the head of credit of that bank, some Dutch guy at the time, chose to look at a file way below his threshold. He evaluated it and found that, hey, you bounced a check last month. Please run this account for another 2-3 months, 1 quarter, and then come back and we okay your loan. I'm walking into the bank in Mugogo on Monday morning, and you could see the face of the head of ops drop. How do I tell this guy that the loan has been pulled? Irony is later she got into business and I started coaching her on how business works. But anyway, I was out. Indian suppliers started grabbing me. One guy, in our business, you would give a guy a signed check, not dated. So if you want 100 million, it's purely on trust. You want 100 million, you give him 100 million in checks, don't date them. Then your credit limit is 100 million. You get, you sell, you take back. I had done it so many times, but got excited and expanded and used their money. Now I can't pay. One guy got a check of 9 million shillings, banked it, went and paid some police officers at CPS. They grabbed me, put me in CPS for not paying 9 million shillings. The only time I've ever been in Uganda and jail, I hope I never go. I'm like, what the hell? I got out quickly, looked for the term sheet those guys had given me, went to them, and I'm like, guys, are you ready to invest? I had my Ferrari in my Mavira mortgage. I was going to take any deal they gave me. Thankfully, they chose to invest $3 million, and we grew the company. There were so many tough lessons in there, very tough lessons. But I learned, and I hope you learn it today, that one, banks are not your friends. If you can find capital in alternative ways, find it in alternative ways. Build, get proof of concept, then go look for patient capital. I'll tell you, back end of December 2023, Stanbic Bank, ask yourself, December 2023 is when businesses were still suffering from COVID. Businesses were shutting down left, right, and center. Do you know that that's the year Stanbic Bank made its highest profit? 412 billion shillings after tax. 15% increase from their previous one. If they really work for the economy that they are in, these banks, how are they making out like bandits while businesses are failing? The return on equity for Stanbic Bank that year, I'm using Stanbic Bank not because it's bad, but it's because it's the biggest. The return on equity that year was 22.5%. Someone guess what an S&P 500 company's return on equity is. A company where guys say, man, this is a very solid company. It's a hot commodity. Someone guess what the return on equity is.
5K for the right guess. Either 5K or a Rolex. We have takers. If you can guess, if you want to guess.
Exactly. It's anywhere from 10 to 10.3%. And that's a solid company. But these guys are making out like bandits. They're returning money in crazy ways. But the businesses in the ecosystems where they work are failing. So then it means as entrepreneurs, you need to figure out a way to look for alternative capital. And I hope that at the end of this conversation, you know how to build your business in such a way that you can attract patient capital and grow. So,
if the lot of you were paying attention, and mostly the ones I've been seeing writing, there is one equation that he gave us today. What is the easiest way to get into Natif's bank account?
Tony. Okay.
You see, I'm expecting money from him, that's why I keep saying
I have
Natif, but anyway. So, if you were paying attention, this is a quick quiz for the audience. What do you think is the easiest way to get into Natif's bank account? And he mentioned it like 3 times. It is something you drink. Yeah? Someone said something in the back? Nairo. Okay. So you buy a crate of Nairos and the man might open his account. Now, Tony, the journey itself has been quite inspiring, all the way from when you were pushing jerry cans to pushing weed. I don't know if weed found you or you found weed.
I've always been a drug dealer, I guess. It was written in the stars.
Yes, from weed to Guardian Health. Very interesting transition. Now, so you have now come up with the name Guardian Health. You have now bought your property. The Ferrari is now running, but now it's running out of money. I am guessing this is when now the stresses really started coming up. Now, being that we're talking exit strategies, right? It means either the business is really running very well, that people are looking to buy, or even you yourself, you're looking at it and saying, what's the next challenge? So for you, when did you get to that point of thinking, you know what, I am going to build this business, Guardian Health, but then eventually at a certain time T, I want to exit it. Is that something that you went into Guardian Health knowing would happen? Or Chakutomela, as in it just found you?
Funny thing is, I built this company to solve a problem. So when I was in grad school at the University of Washington, I was studying public health, you would sit down and see people write research papers about the quality of medicine in sub-Saharan Africa. You would see that, say 30% in some estimates of medicines in sub-Saharan Africa were counterfeit. So I'm like, so do I then, and basically this is me convincing myself of the cause. So I'm like, because first and foremost, me choosing to open another pharmacy chain is a very impulsive decision. But that impulse is coming from a place. Okay? So I'm like, I could actually spend a lot of my time studying for this PhD and then, write papers and fly to all manner of Western capitals, present among peers, audiences like this, and feel important, or I can roll my sleeve and solve the problem. So we came out and chose to solve the problem. From a public health perspective, I believe that business can be a force for good. And you can use business to solve intractable problems in society. So I had a cause. I was a warrior with a cause. But also the money is nice. You want to build something and be able to employ lots of people and also make money while at it. But the whole idea of exit did not exist in my mind. Not that I was terribly attached to the company, no. I learned of the importance of exit when I got a private equity fund investing in me. And so then I went, studied, looked at, they have these clauses in their contracts, drag along and tag along clauses. A guy comes and says, okay, I'm investing maybe $3 million in your company, and post-investment, your company is worth $5 million. Okay? I have 60%, you have 40%. I'm just throwing out these figures. If we value this company on revenue, so if from the time I invested, at the time I invested, your revenue was maybe 200,000. 10 times multiple on revenue is your value, so that's 10x 2 million. I put 3, your value is now 5. If we build up this revenue to like $10 million and we do a 2x or a 5x as we previously did, the value of your company is suddenly what? $50 million. That's the play. So a guy will say, at that point, we get someone who is giving us, say, 3 times the money I put in, or 3 times the value. You come along, we all sell. If you find that person, we all sell. I don't stand in your way. That's a deal. You have to respect agreements. But also it makes sense. Okay? You're going to have a relatively smaller thing of something really huge, so that at the end of the day, you're exiting with maybe $20, $30 million. Money you would never have exited with if you stayed in Yoka thing, Yoka 1 or 2 shops. You will hand it over to your son, and maybe to your daughter. And, you've seen some Indians, they have 1 shop or 2 shops, and they work there till they die, or they go back to Gujarati, and then the kids take over. You understand? I mean, it's a form of exit. But then it doesn't allow you the freedom to then get back and invest in other people's companies, have conversations like this, build other things, do things that please you. You understand? Yeah, so it's a trade-off, but I think it's something I would do again and again. And even the new companies I'm building, apart from one in tourism, because we're building this company and because we love travel. Probably that's the only company I would have trouble exiting. But still, I would exit if the figure is right and allows me some freedom.
So, the basic understanding that I'm getting here now is that the exit kind of came along the way, or at least the thoughts of the exit came along the way, right?
Yeah, but just like you build a business, you don't have all the knowledge about building a business, but you learn as you go along.
So now, but for you to get to that point of exiting, there must have been systems or even a foundation that you had set in place that even made you look attractive for an acquisition.
Yes.
So what were those strategies? What is that foundation?
And this is when I learned how to actually build businesses. When I was a single owner, you're Kosa coughing, you're jumping from one point to another, you're the law. But imagine you get this guy, he gives you his money, and he votes down what you consider a common sense thing. I'll give you an example. Guardian Health was the best evaluated bidder to put pharmacies in Monaco. The only one. So imagine you worked on that thing for like 3 years, and you're offered that tender, and you bring it to the board excitedly, and someone says, no.
Just like that.
No, we're not going to do it. And you're like, guys, this makes sense. We're going to build an $100 million business, just like this. 2, where you see First Pharmacy at that town, Malawi. That land was for the Nurses Council. They gave us a written offer and said, deposit $20,000 as commitment fee, and then we hand you this thing, and we have a lease maybe for 40 years. You take it to your board, and they said no. And this is a board of a company that you used to run without anyone stopping you.
So now you have remembered.
How do you react? You can't. They can vote you out, they can fire you, and even put capital calls on you because they have bags of money and kick you out of your company. And then suddenly the people you have convinced, because you have a lot of these young people. I just saw my colleague Cedric just behind, but I think he has walked out. The guy who runs Guardian now. You have got these kids that you got from pharmacy school. You've sold them the vision. They don't know about your boardroom fights. For them, they're here because they believe in what you sold them. They believe in what you're building. How then do you set aside pride and say, this guy who is voting me down, their understanding of this business does not go beyond the Excel sheet. but I have to find a way of respecting them. How then do I do that? Oftentimes, and I learned this from my former investors, I thank them for these lessons. Some of them were very tough lessons. But the board chairman told me one thing. He said, after all these disappointments, I sulked, I did one. He's like, Tony, here is something you need to learn. Don't come to the board for a decision you don't already have. Do you know what that means? That you're building companies, and for you, your interest is, yeah, we're going to make lots of money, we're going to reach these markets, we're going to do this. And this guy is like, how many women are we going to lift out of poverty? And for you in your pitch, you haven't factored that in. That I need his vote, therefore, I need to speak to the things that tug at his heartstrings. A lot of the board decisions are not made for purely financial reasons. Some of them are driven by the ego. Has he come to me and actually begged me? But you're the majority shareholder. If we get this contract and put these pharmacies and we sell for 100 million, you're walking away with 60 million. If you don't take it, the most we're hoping to sell for is 20. But you're voting it down. How then do I have to convince you? Because on your side, you have another 10 companies. This one can die for all you care. They literally will say that. That you can't afford to fight us. Catch them in fraud, and you can't afford to fight us. Because we can frustrate your company so much, and it collapses, and then what do? If you embarrass us before the people who give us money and put us out of business, by the time they put us out of business, you'll be back in Bali sweeping the streets. And oftentimes they're not lying. So, as an entrepreneur, understand that the guy who is bringing money is not your friend. If you end up shooting whiskey together occasionally, thank God. But make sure that when you're having business conversations, it's professional, you respect them, you give them what they want, and hope to get what you want. And learn the art of selling your dream. You're always constantly going to be in sales mode. There's a reason that, say Steve Jobs was kicked out of Apple at first. And his board chose the side of a guy, a Pepsi, a guy who was selling colored water that he hired. It's not that he didn't care about the company, but he didn't know where the power was, and he probably didn't know how to sell. His idea, it happens. You can start a company and they kick you out. And that's a good thing. Really. Because it's going to teach you, get a board. If your board cannot fire you, you're not really running a proper company. You're still running gung-ho. But learning that discipline that, you know what, this guy has invested in me. I owe him a return on his money. How do I de-risk him from key personnel risk? I take borders. If I fall on a border and die, his investment is going to die. So then, I took up teaching at Makerere and started looking for the kids who are the best in my class. I was teaching pharmacoeconomics or something like that. Who are the best in my class? And I'll bring them and put them in Guardian. I find kids who had been to Chisui, they're brilliant, they're out of Mbarara, they're really smart. You bring them in. The kid who is, the guy, I call him a kid, the guy who runs Guardian now, walked into Guardian as a student, just after pharmacy school. And, I just had to make sure I taught him what it took to run this company. And then step out of the way. These guys know how to run your company better than you, if only you allow them. So I looked at my job as a way of working my way out of a job. I wanted to get people who at the drop of a hat could actually replace me. That came with some bit of disrespect from the board, because now they realize, we can fire this guy and still continue. But that's the point. You need to be able to give your board the knowledge and the assurance that they can get rid of you. You're not as important as you think you are. That's the whole point of building a company, so that when it's floated on the stock exchange or when you sell it to someone, it can continue beyond you, and then you can go and do other pursuits. You get it? But how do you ensure that these contracts you sign can protect you from bad faith actors? You need to make sure that by the time you're fundraising, you're not desperate, you're not in that Ferrari in Mavira situation. You understand? The best time to sell a company is actually when it's making money. It's not when it's struggling. Because when it's struggling, these guys will buy you for peanuts. In pharma business, barrier to entry is location and licenses for that location. We have a company backed by $1 billion fund that came to Uganda, you know them, and failed to expand. Why? Because our strategy was make sure where they have their busiest pharmacies, stick a pharmacy there and outcompete them, but also they can't find space in these other markets because you planted your flag there. That's a huge asset. But in normal everyday valuation that relies on revenue and profitability, in a world where you've blown all your revenue to get territory, you're going to get a bad deal. But soon as they put fuel in that Ferrari and put it on the Autobahn, it's flying. So that should tell you that once you have proof of concept, sell. Get partners on board. Reduce your risk. Reduce your stress. Deal with problems that don't require, money. Because I can tell you for sure, a lot of you guys who are building now think the biggest problem you have standing in your way is money. But you'll get someone invest in you, and suddenly you realize that there's other bigger problems in building a company.
So, and just before we go into the challenges other than money, just to take you back a little bit, so you mentioned that you've now built Guardian Health, you've bought the land.
I didn't build Guardian Health. Most of the people who built Guardian Health are those kids I got from university. My job was to be cheerleader, play godfather, protect them, be vulnerable with them. For someone to buy into your vision, you need to present a human side. Oftentimes, as the vision holder, we tend to think we are the best at this thing, but we are not.
So how do you nurture that? Because that is a mindset. A lot of our entrepreneurs, and even some that we actually have here today, many that I myself have come across, when you ask them, okay, why are you building? Right? Why are you building? What are you building for? The person will tell you, I'm building to solve a problem, but then when you see the way they're running the business, it is money. But then the way I'm hearing you speak, it sounds like you were already training people to take over from you, even before that. So how did you come to have that mindset when many of our entrepreneurs do not have that?
It helped that I'd been mentored by people that I'd learned from their mistakes, I'd learned from their triumphs. I also got exposed to the Western world, and I saw how people build businesses. A lot of these successful businesses whose products you use are not single owner. They certainly have raised money at different stages, and these guys have perfected the system for decades. So, but I also think that the business is not an extension of me. That business took me to CPS for 2 nights, 2 weekends. It can't be me. Imagine you're taken to the sales on a company account, on a company check. The impunity in police. So that built up something in me. I'm like, Honestly, a business exists independent of you. If you think you're so great that you're the alpha and the omega, you're going to die with that thing. And then that tells me that the problem you're trying to solve is not so important to you. What's important is you and your own selfish interests. You want to be praised, you want to be the boss, you want to show up and everyone, you grew up in a household where you show up, dad shows up and everyone runs, leaves the TV for him. He has a special chair and special, plates. That kind of thing. Don't bring that mindset to entrepreneurship. Businesses fail oftentimes. You see, our definition of success, unfortunately, for a lot of entrepreneurs, is I start this business, I buy a second-hand Japanese car, I build a 4-bedroom house in Kira, my child goes to Kampala parents, I can be able to afford another muzigo for my side chick in Naria, and that's success. But I think that the definition of business success should go beyond that. Are you able to hand the wheels to someone else and this thing grows beyond you? Whether you still have shareholding in there or not. Can you free up your time? The only commodity we have as a people is our time. Why should I commit my time slaving away for this entity? I've already told you the company is separate from me. Why am I spending all my productive years slaving away for this company when I can go and climb mountains and all that stuff? But anyway, so that's you need to spread the risk, because if you choose to own all the risk, you're owning the downside of it as well. That's a mindset that people need to get. You want to own the whole upside of the company, you're going to own the whole downside of it. And in an ecosystem where banks make out like bandits, you're buying money at 30%, unless you're selling cocaine. How are you going to return that money? Then you need to find a way of getting, patient capital.
So are we in essence saying that building to exit is probably a lot better than building for a lifetime?
I mean, ultimately, every business you build, you're going to exit it, either by it failing, you dying, you passing it on to someone else. You might as well exit it with a decent payout. So build it for that.
So at what
I can still go back and buy Guardian, except I'll pay more. And if the numbers make sense, I'll pay. I'll get a coalition. It doesn't matter if I sold it for 15 or 2 or 10 or whatever. If a guy says under 100, and when my finance people, Kamanzi, I see him back there, he knows these things. When my finance people say, echikumi tuitao, I will not be salty that I sold it for 15 or 20 and the man is asking for 100. It's business. If I know I can then develop it from there and sell it for $1 billion, I look for the financing and buy it. Do you understand? Yes.
So maybe you can give some of our aspiring entrepreneurs some food for thought. When would be the best time to start considering that, I see this signal, I check this checkbox, maybe it's now time to start considering exiting?
I'll use this example of water. 20 years ago, would you believe that someone would sell you water in a plastic bottle and you pay 1,000 shillings for it? No. So if I came up with the idea of bottling water and saying, guys, family members, the machine that bottles this water in a Juakali way is going to cost 20 million. What is my proof of concept? That I can actually bottle healthy water and get 100 people to buy it. Okay? Now, those are the seed round. Your own capital, your friends, your family, some fools that you managed to convince. Because, they're betting on failure 95% of the time. Okay? I mean, it's the truth. So, you show that I can sell water, 1,000 bottles of this thing. I can find 1,000 other fools. That's your proof of concept. But the pool of resources you've gone to, these guys have sacrificed. He had his car 1 million, he was your campus roommate, he has given you 700K. Now, to produce at scale, to be able to sell to 10,000, you need better machines, you need a marketing budget, you need someone to do your accounts, you need someone to do whatever. But you have your proof of concept. Okay? That's when you start thinking about selling, raising capital, either debt, but if you're not a politician's child who has collateral in Kololo and whatever, you're going to have to sell what you have. My ideas, my sweat equity, and my proof of concept. But I'm going to be careful. I cannot sell the bulk of this company now. Because after we prove that we can sell to 10,000 people, then the next target is 1 million. At 10,000 people, we are still not making money. We are still in the hole. But at least we've proven we can sell water at scale. So you're like, okay, can I get a combination of debt and maybe a little equity? Can I give you a convertible loan? Can I look for convertible debt? At what point does this debt convert? Can we write that in the contract? At what price does it convert? Hey, human, my $10,000 has allowed you to reach 10,000 people. I cannot buy those shares at the same rate as someone else who is coming in at the 10,000 people point. Give me a 40% discount. It's a business discussion. It's logical. Do you understand? Then at that point, you're like, okay, when I raised $10,000, my valuation was maybe 100,000. So this guy took 10%. Now that $10,000 has allowed me to reach 10,000 people. And now my valuation is 1 million. Okay? He still owns 10%. His money has become 100,000. Tozimba Mutima. Because yours is now 900,000. But it's not in the bank. Now at that point, and remember, you must have a proper corporate governance structure. You have a board, you have what? You need to have that. A company should speak for itself. If they send you an auditor, those numbers should not need you to be there and say, no. No! The numbers should speak for themselves. Guys who know how to evaluate companies, they look at the numbers and they know whether you're stealing money, whether you have a board, whether you have discipline. It's easy. So be very purposeful when you're building. I need to bank my first money. I need to have a collection of friends, even if they are my fellow drunks, where I can occasionally, after a quarter, go and tell them these are the things we're trying to build. This is have a quasi-board. So that when you get a proper board, which is important to have a proper corporate governance structure, build that discipline. When you get to that point, you're used to taking advice. You're not like, I know it all. So anyway, we're back to that whole $10,000, $1 million thing.
Yeah.
So at your next raise, your value is $1 million. Okay? You have made money, you're now a millionaire. But the money is not in your pocket. You have just managed to convince another fool, except this fool wanted to see more evidence. So, those people who fear to invest at the start, they're the ones that make VC firms rich. Because these are the ones who buy companies at $10,000 and take 10%. And so, at the next $1 million raise, a guy is bringing $1 million, and guess what he's getting? 20%. And a board seat. Suddenly he's given $1 million. Post-raise, he's gotten 20%. Your company is worth $2 million. You've convinced him to give you $1 million at a $2 million valuation. You all get diluted pro rata. You probably remain with 60%, but you have 60% of 2 million. Now probably if you then manage to sell water to 1 million people, then suddenly Pepsi is looking at you, Coca-Cola is looking at you, you're threatening their Renzori, you're threatening their Nirvana. You're going to come and say, let's buy you. But if you have first move advantage, you're the first one to convince people that you can buy mineral water, then your competition is going to be a copycat who is going to come into the market with lots of money. How do you keep them out? Raise a truckload of money. Get a small payout, build your house, start borrowing, but again, now keep building. You understand? Because at that point, the only thing you have to prove is, can I now go national? Can I go international? At that point, surely, you should be able to maybe say, guys, I've hustled. So as you raise, you also raise secondaries. You get diluted. Pro rata, you're remaining with 30%. You're like, but I can sell it at 10% because this guy has bought this company at maybe a $10 million valuation. If I sell 10%, I'm moving away with $1 million and I remain with 20%. Now this guy is bringing this money and we are growing. We're building an $100 million company. At that point I can exit. I have my 20 million. Do you understand the math? But you started with money from your fellow drunks and the fools who believe you can sell water. Or you can go to Karamoja and say, these people need shoes. And another one will be like, but they're walking barefoot because they probably don't need shoes. So that, what I just took you through, is the process of company building. It sounds so basic, but it's exactly how it is.
So, with that, keeping that in mind, how then did you set up Guardian Health to look investable and then to look that attractive for others, for Maindawa, to not even look at the likes of Dam Kononi in Tanzania, but to look at you here in Uganda and say, you know what, we can buy this.
I'll tell you, it
helped. For our audience here that is still trying to build out those foundations of those systems, outside just the product itself.
I tell you, it took a bit of pain. Remember when I said that the numbers should tell the story of the company? That comes from building a solid corporate governance structure. That's the real work of building a company. Understanding how to work within certain guardrails, protecting the company from the enthusiasm of the entrepreneur, protecting the company from a key personnel risk that now, if Tony walked away on us, we have another 5 people that can run this. How do you build up that? How do you have systems that reduce theft, reduce expiries, increase profitability? How do you explain models that can then point in the future and say, hey, in 5 years this will be your revenue, so I'm selling you this dream. We all sell dreams. A guy who sells you your fancy car is selling you a dream. When I'm selling my company, I'm selling a dream to the next guy. So we're able to tell these guys that, you know what, in 2 years, you will be able to double your revenue. And truthfully, you read the interview, they were like, this company grows 40% year on year. So then, if you do that, and it turns out correct, you build a better reputation in the market. And I'm a believer that once you sell something that works. When you tell someone, I'm leaving you the best employees in this industry, mean that. When they show up and 2 years later, none of those top performers have left, none of them has left, then you did your job. One, training them, but also ensuring that the dream you built continues growing. It's purposeful. Build human resource. I needed to make sure we had a hiring thing. There's this thing, birds of a feather flock together. If I believe an employee is fantastic, do you know the best way to hire another fantastic employee? I get him or her to hire someone they believe will perform like them, And then I ask them to mentor them. And that's it. And oftentimes, I will have some of the best. And a key metric for an entrepreneur, like a vision holder like me, was looking at staff turnover. If we are losing many people, then the company culture is crap. We're not building a solid company. People should be happy to come to work. The one time I fired someone, they were a manager and they were disrespecting a sweeper. And they were a top performing manager. And I fired that person, I have no regrets. That's how you show that you clean the toilets, you are the CEO, you are the general manager, you are the CFO, you are the one who sits in all these meetings with our investors and run numbers that even I marvel at. But if you disrespect a sweeper, you will be fired. So once they understand that, then suddenly you're building a culture of mutual respect. And then you need to make sure there's something called the power distance relationship. You need to make sure that anyone can reach you and say, Tony, Chino Chigani, the guy who helped us open some of our most profitable branches was a border guy called Roger, who later got shares in the company as part of the employee share ownership program. And that's another thing you need to put in mind, that as you raise money, have at least 4% of the company set aside for your employees. Because really, they're the ones who are building value. Don't overrate yourself. You just happen to have an idea that worked out of maybe 90 that failed. So have a certain portion of the company going to these people, because they're the ones that build the company, and make sure they feel appreciated. And don't be afraid to be vulnerable before them. Cedric was just behind there, but he's left, the guy who runs Guardian now. He will tell you, and we have pictures. I got him into mountaineering just so I could see the mental toughness of the man. In the mountains, you have objective hazards that can kill you. How is he going to react in those circumstances? Is he going to quit? And also somehow, when you're facing death in these mountains, somehow you're so free with your information. So even you share, you're like, man, start talking about stuff, kana kancha, this one is this, I have my thing there. They see the human side of you, eh? So then they're going to build with that in mind. And I'm glad that my people, even from when I left, they've continued this spirit of embracing vulnerability and not putting yourself on a pedestal because you're the one running the show. That builds lasting companies. Because beyond a certain number, like for us when we started out, we were like four staff. You know everyone, you know their wives, their husbands, you know their children's birthday. I still celebrate them, send gifts. But when you have like 200, 300 employees, how do you ensure that that culture permeates through to the last employee? It's by building legend. This guy is good. When he finds you, he's going to respect you. When he finds you, he's going to do this. You understand? Don't have airs about you. One of the most difficult things to do beyond raising money in this country as you scale is scaling company culture. When you go to, it takes a lot of training, a lot of failing. When you go to, and sadly this is common in companies that have many branches. When you go to Java's Kamocha and Java's Kampala Road and Java's God knows where, have you ever wondered why their food tastes the same? When someone brings you food, they time your watch. They will take like 3-4 minutes and come back and ask you how is the food. Do you think that's just an initiative of theirs? You look at it and you're like, oh, good customer care. The AC is at the same. That's not by accident. They spend a lot of time training their people, building company culture. One of Guardian's biggest expenses is training. Constantly training people and retraining and making sure they understand it's not enough to hire the smartest. You have to train them to a certain level. This is how you take care of clients. This is how you take care of investors. This is how you take care of this. If my investor showed up in the pharmacy and they're looking for shit about me, they'll never get it. Because my staff would already have found it and told me about it. And I would have fixed it. You understand? Because the distance between them and I is minimum.
So, in a nutshell, are you telling some of us who wake up in the morning and say, you know what, means Mr. CEO, I feel a certain level, now I must come and be with everybody else at the same level? What would that do to my ego? What would that disturb me? How did you navigate that?
Again, we go back to what is a company and who is Jesse. If you fuse those two, you have a problem. You want to be worshipped? Go home. Let your kids worship you. Have a nice dog. Let him lick your feet when you show up. When you come to work, respect people. Have them call you Jesse.
So that dynamic is what I'm talking about. How do we separate ourselves from the business? Because then we have this notion, and also it's in our societies, that you wake up tomorrow and they'll tell you, hey, that is the Guardian guy. And even you feel a certain air of, hey, okay. Then
I actually don't feel anything.
But then how do you separate, how did you separate yourself from that? Or
Truthfully, I don't feel anything.
At all?
No. That's the company. This is me. Just come and say, Tony, how are you? Like, there's a reason. And again, when you're building companies, make sure you exist independent of your brand. You're de-risking your investor. Because if now I went back and built Guardian, and I have this urban legend built on both truth and probably exaggerations, it will be more difficult for me to exit. Because they'll be like, what happens when Tony leaves? You understand? Because you fused yourself with the company. But in that company, there's people like Cedric, there's people like Linda, there's people like Veronica, there's Agnes, there's Barbara, there's all these people who actually make stuff work. So if I come out and I'm advertising myself as the Guardian guy because I need to get a front seat in church, at a wedding, at what, my friends in the Rotary Club to worship me, I'm failing the goal of building a company that can survive me. If you want to be worshipped, I swear to God, find a beautiful dog. Those babies are lovers. They will worship you. You feel all the love you want. Don't come to work and force people to worship you. They are there to work and get paid and go. If then they like you, they'll run through a brick wall to make sure they think they go above and beyond.
So you have, let's put it back to 2022, 2023.
Yes.
You have now built a product, proof of concept that is really working. You have now put together a company culture that even you yourself, you believe in. So tomorrow morning, my DAO wakes up and then they say, we want to buy Guardian Health. How did that journey start? How did it start that they came to you and said, or did you go to them and say, no, what we're selling? How did that begin?
Truthfully, we still had some board squabbles. And I'm like, yeah, the business is working out great, but I still feel like maybe my investors still don't understand it fully, and we don't understand each other very well. So an exit was always going to be on the cards, but also these guys who invest in a cycle 5 years, they exited. So you also have that at the back of your mind. So you have a fantastic business that is growing 30 30 to 40, even sometimes 50% year on year. It's a fantastic business. You can hold it for long. But then it means you as a founder, you need to go into the market and do another fundraising, look for like 8 million, pay this guy who invested this 3 million to go away, and then you're still there, you're struggling to pay this debt, even when the business can support it. Do I really want that hassle? When will I rest? So then you realize that an exit comes, you're giving your baby to very reasonable people. They are good people, they're decent people, I should say. You know they're not going to treat your people badly. Your team that you built is going to still have jobs. They're even going to get a pay raise. They're also going to cash out on some of their shares in the company. They're going to do something nice. They'll be able to pay for grad school. They'll be able to buy a plot. So there's a lot of considerations in there. So for me, it was joy that finally our game is validated. And yeah, we had that exit. It was voted, as you know, the best exit in East Africa 2023. And that's something to be proud of. It then takes away all this nonsense that people push, that you cannot invest in a business in Uganda and you get your money back. So by us getting that exit, we are making the conversation lighter for other entrepreneurs who are building. They'll be able to point to that exit and say, Uganda produced the best exit in East Africa in 2023. And it's a service to the ecosystem. 2, you need to liberate yourself. I need time to do other pursuits, read, do activism, try to solve structural problems that are beyond I need to sell Viagra and Durex and get money. Travel a bit, enjoy the outdoors, meet other people in other areas. That is what an exit gives you. But I look back at my time at Guardian with great joy. I look back at the company now even soaring further, and I'm so proud of Cedric and his team and what they are doing. I'm like, I look at him and I'm like, this is a kid. He showed up just looking for a job. Now he employs more than 200 people. He thinks for them. The company reaches more than 2 million people. There's joy in that. So what that I'm not earning from it anymore? So what? You've gotten paid, you've moved on, the price was met. If you want to go back and build again, I still think I could be the godfather of farmer here. I can go back and build, but is it something I find exciting? Who knows? But no one stops you.
So you got to that point and you said, all right, you've now learned about exits and exit strategies. What is it that made Guardian Health attractive to my DAWA? To where they came and said, you know what? And also for the valuation, because I'm not sure if you know, but Guardian Health was actually valued at about $10 million, was it?
I'm not at liberty to tell anyone that, but yeah, 8 figures. It was 8 figures.
Around. not what you saw that. Sorry, not what he saw that. That's a different ballgame.
Yes,
not
yes,
what he
yes,
saw
yes.
that. I'm talking about his valuation. So don't get me wrong. Okay, his valuation by the time.
Now I don't think you can buy it if you had 30.
Right. So how did you get to that point?
I mean that more sincerely. I don't think you can buy it if you have 30. I'm speculating, but I don't think you can buy it if you have 30 million.
It has now grown to more than 30 million.
Yeah, it should.
Okay, so then what
about running businesses, but it's a different ballgame. The pharma space is really a different ballgame. It gets a certain talent. So if you have been purposeful about accumulating that talent and throwing them in at the deep end and being around to show them how to avoid the waves or ride the waves, then you can hand them over to someone else and move on. So those are the fundamentals. corporate governance structure, the staffing, can the company scale, how is the market, and how the market, I'll tell you one thing, Uganda has close to 2,000 retail pharmacies, and the largest chain has less than 25. So it means the market is ripe for consolidation. So you sell them that idea, you go and you're like, how did Boots grow? It also grew from a few pharmacies and then consolidated by buying corner stores here and there. How did this game grow? You sell that story, you also need to be a bit sharp, okay? You sell that story, you build your models, sell them, and if the numbers are sense checked and they check out, if I give you a model today, and I'm like, in 1 year, I'm going to be making $2 million, and I'm making one now, and it's taking you 9 months to study, to do due diligence on the business, you're still going to be looking at the model and see, hey, how is it tracking? If you see it's even tracking higher, you're like, hey, give me this thing. Now the next thing is, who is making it work? If it is these young guys and Tony is just existing to come, take coffee, cheer them up, occasionally talk to the regulator, and you're like, maybe it can survive here. You talk to him. When I buy you out, what are you going to do? I'm going to go into trouble. So he's not a risk to me. Can I also write a non-compete in here, and maybe 1, 2, 3 years of non-compete? You can't use the money I've given him to come and drive me out and take my stuff. Tick. So then, you buy. That's how the process works. It's not rocket science.
So talking process, maybe let's get now into a bit more of the actual exit itself. How were those conversations, and what are some of your highlight moments in that either it was a light bulb moment that, I should have known this before coming into this conversation, or it was a big challenge that you faced during those negotiations?
No, you're trying to set a company with a board that even up to now, I don't think they really fully understood the potential of the business.
The same board?
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think, and I can say this to their face. Is it recorded? Yeah, I didn't think they understood the potential of the business, most respectfully, really. But they were good people. They told me many things. So you're going to always have those squabbles, but there are minor issues. The bigger picture is we build a successful business, forget the fights, let's make sure everyone leaves this party happy, and we go on to another existence. You win some, you lose some, I've been bruised here, you have also been punched there, let's shake hands and move. So the bigger challenge was to agree on how to manage the exit process. These guys who are buying, even if they looked now, even if they looked 10 years down the road, they were not going to find a better company. And they were bleeding money in Kenya. They needed this. They talk about it themselves. So it's when you're selling something you know is solid, it's not a hassle. Funny thing is, and for me I was excited to have this successful exit because when you look at Western capital owners, they look at investing in Africa like some sort of favor. They say, 40% of the capital that goes to Africa goes to die. Now if I can demonstrate that we return capital, if we take care of the fundamentals, then we are in business for years, for decades, as Africans. Then we can also convince other Africans to bring in that money. Our fellow Ugandans, bring in that money. Remove money from land banking. Put it in shares in these businesses that are showing potential for a huge upside. You see, so we are laying the carpet for whoever else is coming after us. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things that we get when we get exits. I don't want to come here 5 years down the road and I'm still the one talking about exits. I want to look here and I'm like, I'm in the audience and I'm seeing you guys telling other people about exits. The way we do that is build sound businesses. When the ink dried on that contract, I told you this already. transaction wasn't. The most memorable thing that day was that I got my daughter, she's 15 in September. I had a sports car, an Audi TT at the time, still do. Told her, oh sweetheart, the deal has ended, we've made some money. Went in the car, went to the bypass, lowered the window, and tried to max it out. And screamed so hard, played loud music, got back home, slept. Tomorrow was a completely different day. Just waited for money to hit the account, which it does like magic. 2 days later, you have your cash.
The account is smiling.
Suddenly, you're like, okay, not the Ugandan one. Suddenly, you're like, I never have money here, I'm not stupid. Suddenly.
That's another life lesson.
Because I'm an activist, I can piece of a government guy and you have a yen in your account for like the next 5 years. But anyway, seriously. Yeah, it was this sense of, now what? Is this really it? I wasn't sad that the company had been sold. I was actually happy. I knew the people who were going to still run the company were my people, and they were going to do a solid job, and they haven't disappointed. But it was so, I've worked so hard. 10 years of sweat, 10 years of depression, 10 years of anxiety. Have you guys ever been in a situation where it's the 29th of the month and you have like 90 people to pay and you don't have money? And a guy at 2 p.m. who is supposed to pay you maybe 100 or 200 million says, Tony, check yaganye. Bank has told me next week, and you don't want to miss payroll. Do you know how depressing that is? Run to every money lender. A guy gives you 100 million and says, I want 10% at the end of the month. And you have to take it. Do you know how upsetting that is? You sleep, and there was a time, the only way I would sleep was getting through a bottle of Glenfiddich 18. It was rough. I would sleep for like 4 hours. Up to today, I still face that, insomnia. Some of you will see me online at 3 a.m. So I learned, instead of wasting my time there, I'll get up and read. This came from the trauma of entrepreneurship. So then you realize that, man, this was all because of that. You lose friends. It's rough. So then after it's all done, there's a very anticlimactic feeling. But I think it's a good feeling. Then you realize all of this was vanity. Now you get back and do even more dangerous things where they can off you because you exposed him as corrupt. When you're looking for that excitement.
So okay. that kind of brings me to a question, one of the questions that I asked earlier. Yes, we're actually coming to that. So one of the things that I'd actually wanted to ask the audience is, who here believes money can buy happiness? Yeah, that money can buy happiness. That's when you're broke. That's very interesting. So let's maybe, just as we're coming to the close, and then I can open it up to the audience. The one thing that personally I would like to know, what is that 1 or 2 messages that you tell 27-year-old Tony who's just walking into the startup ecosystem? What are those 1 or 2 things that you know now that you wish you had known back then, mostly surrounding exiting?
Guys, you remember the mineral water analogy? Raise money when your company is on the up. Never ever try to raise money unless you're extremely desperate and you're being locked up for 9 million shillings. Never ever try to raise money when you're tanking. It is counterintuitive. But companies will go through highs and lows. Fundraise when you're on the high. There's something we call runway in entrepreneurship. We don't start out making profits. You probably have this idea you're going to take 3 years. Amazon took more than a decade. You're building the fundamentals. Make sure you have sufficient runway to allow you to experiment, to allow you to fail and still survive.